Imagine descending into the ocean's midwaters beyond the reach of sunlight, where the seafloor lies hidden beneath kilometers of indigo and bioluminescent creatures flicker like distant stars. There, drifting in the twilight zone at depths between 400 and 1,000 meters, lives one of the ocean's most enigmatic leviathans, the giant oarfish, Regalicus, a ribbon-like serpent that can reach lengths of up to 11 meters and weigh over 200 kilograms. Its body, flattened from side to side, bears a single undulating dorsal fin that runs from its tiny, beaked head all the way to its tail, where a large paddle-shaped caudal fin hangs like an oar, hence its name. Beneath pale silver-blue scales, patches of iridescent chromatophores reflect scant light, while a crimson crest of elongated filaments crowns its head like a royal plume, streaming backward with each gentle surge of its fin. In these remote depths, where food drifts down in a slow rain of marine snow, the oarfish moves with tranquil grace, its dorsal ripples undulating in waves that require only minimal energy, allowing it to hover and drift as it captures zooplankton, krill, and small schooling fish with a capacious forward-facing mouth. Despite its colossal size, the giant oarfish eludes human eyes. For centuries, mariners and coastal communities knew of its existence only through the occasional stranding when an earthquake-shaken shore or an unusually strong current drove exhausted specimens into shallow bays and beaches, such often occurring in regions with steep continental slopes, offered the first real data on oarfish anatomy. The delicate structure of its cranial bones, the configuration of its gill arches, and its highly specialized, pressure-adapted enzymes. In one famous 19th century account, villagers in Japan's Izu Peninsula discovered a 5-meter oarfish washed ashore after a seismic tremor, prompting both scientific curiosity and local legend that these messengers of the deep herald earthquakes and tsunamis. Although modern seismology finds no consistent predictive link, the correlation between oarfish strandings and tectonic events in the Pacific Ring of Fire continues to intrigue interdisciplinary researchers, exploring how pressure waves, or subtle electromagnetic fluctuations, might influence deep-sea organisms' behavior. 2. Observe live oarfish in their native realm. Marine biologists have harnessed remotely operated vehicles equipped with high-definition cameras, low-intensity lighting, and ultra-slow thrusters to minimize disturbance. In 21st century expeditions, teams lowered baited camera traps into known oarfish habitats steep underwater canyons off Hawaii, the Sea of Cortez, and the Bay of Bengal. These deployments yielded rare footage of oarfish gliding vertically, head upward, scanning for plankton with their sensitive lateral line system, then reversing direction in a smooth arc. Such observations confirm that oarfish perform daily vertical migrations, ascending toward the nutrient-rich mesopelagic zone under cover of darkness to feed, then retreating to cooler, darker depths by daybreak to avoid predators. Their physiology supports this lifestyle, lacking a swim bladder. They rely on neutral buoyancy achieved through a combination of low-density gelatinous tissues and precise fin modulation. Researchers measure their metabolic rates by analyzing muscle enzyme activity in tissue biopsies, revealing astonishingly low energy requirements, an adaptation to environments where food may be scattered and scarce. Oarfish feeding strategies differ markedly from the jaw-crushing tactics of deeper predators. Instead of ambush or high-speed pursuit, oarfish employ a gentle suction mechanism. They slowly approach swarms of krill or copepods, then expand their buccal cavity in a sudden vacuum, drawing prey into their mouths in a single swift motion. Stomach content analyses from stranded specimens revealed diets dominated by small crustaceans, comb jellies, and occasionally juvenile lanternfishes, suggesting that oarfish occupy a unique trophic niche as micropredators in the mid-water column. Their large eyes, equipped with rods optimized for low-light vision, scan for bioluminescent flashes that betray prey, while their shimmering scales and filaments may serve as a form of camouflage, reflecting the occasional glimmer of light. Despite this, few natural predators threaten adults. Only great white sharks, sperm whales, or large deep-diving species like orcas and pilot whales appear capable of preying on these deep-sea serpents, and such encounters are exceedingly rare. Reproduction in oarfish remains one of the deep sea's greatest mysteries. Larval specimens recovered during plankton net tows measure no more than 5 centimeters, with elongated dorsal fin filaments that may aid buoyancy or signaling. These larvae drift in surface waters, feeding on phytoplankton and small zooplankton before descending to deeper habitats as juveniles. Spawning is thought to occur in scattered, offshore locales, as adult oarfish form loose aggregations during certain seasons, possibly triggered by temperature changes or photoperiod shifts. Yet no one has ever observed oarfish laying eggs in situ. All knowledge derives from plankton net collections and the study of egg masses found in surface waters following seasonal blooms. These gelatinous egg rafts, some as large as dinner plates and translucent in appearance, contain thousands of eggs, each buoyant until hatching a reproductive strategy that maximizes dispersal but relies on stable ocean currents to transport larvae to suitable nursery areas. Culturally, the giant oarfish has captured imaginations across the Pacific. In Japanese folklore, oarfish strandings preceded major earthquakes in 1865 and 1923, embedding the creature in seismic prophecy. Modern media portray them as sea monsters, and when a record-length 11-meter specimen washed ashore in 2011, headlines around the globe proclaimed "Dragon of the Deep" and "Sea Serpent returns." Scientists capitalized on the public fascination to crowdfund further ROV explorations and genetic studies, sequencing the oarfish genome to understand its evolutionary lineage. Genomic analyses show that oarfish diverged from other fishes over 100 million years ago. Their unique body plan, an ancient adaptation preserved through eons of environmental change. Environmental DNA, or eDNA, sampling has opened new windows into oarfish distribution. By analyzing trace amounts of genetic material shed into the water by scales, mucus, or excreta, researchers map oarfish presence without direct observation. Studies in the North Atlantic and South Pacific reveal seasonal hotspots where oarfish biomarkers spike, correlating with mesoscale eddies and nutrient upwelling zones. These patterns help scientists predict where to deploy deep-sea observatories and ROVs, improving encounter rates and expanding our knowledge of oarfish population dynamics. Acoustic tagging offers another frontier. Miniaturized transponders affixed to captured specimens before release emit coded pings tracked by moored hydrophone arrays. Preliminary tags, submerged in the Sea of Japan, document individual oarfish movements over weeks, revealing migration corridors spanning hundreds of kilometers and depth preferences between 500 and 800 meters. These data inform conservation efforts as deep-sea fishing and mineral extraction industries expand into oarfish habitats. Although the International Union for Conservation of Nature currently lists the giant oarfish as data deficient, emerging evidence of sparse population densities and latent bycatch in trawl nets underscores the urgency of protective regulations. The giant oarfish stands as an icon of deep-sea wanderer, living bridge between scientific rigor and the poetic depths that humanity still barely comprehends. Every new sighting, every strand of genomic data and acoustic track brings us closer to unraveling the life of this oceanic titan. Imagine a sun-drenched Mediterranean horizon in the waning days of the Athenian Golden Age. When athletes competed at Olympia, philosophers debated in Athens' shaded groves, and across the sea lay an island realm of such splendor that it entered the imaginations of thinkers for millennia. That realm was Atlantis, first described by Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, around the year 360 BCE. Atlantis emerges as a formidable naval power situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, possessing concentric harbors ringed by gleaming marble walls, towering temples adorned with gold and silver, and a striking central plain irrigated by a mighty river fed from snowmelt-capped mountains. According to Plato, the Atlanteans had harnessed hydraulic engineering to build canals and causeways, their engineers carving harbors into the island's core and shaping its landscape with canals and bridges that facilitated trade with all Mediterranean peoples. Their capital city, described as a marvel of symmetry and splendor, featured a royal palace atop a citadel, its gates decorated with richly inlaid wood and statues of deities, while the outer rings held military docks, bustling marketplaces, and warehouses filled with exotic goods brought from distant colonies. Yet, as Plato's account warns, the Atlanteans' divine favor eroded when they grew complacent, their moral fiber weakened by luxury and power. The gods, particularly Poseidon, who had first gifted the island to the hero Atlas, grew displeased with Atlantean hubris. In a single cataclysmic night of earthquakes and floods, the island of Atlantis, in a single day and night of misfortune, was swallowed up by the sea and vanished. The moral of the tale for Plato was clear. Even the greatest earthly power must remain humble or face divine retribution. For centuries, the legend of Atlantis captured the Greek and then the Roman imagination, inspiring conjecture and speculation. Medieval scholars largely dismissed it as allegory, but during the Renaissance, renewed interest in antiquity led explorers and philosophers to search for physical traces. Maps of the Atlantic and Caribbean newly charted by seafarers sparked theories that the Azores archipelago, lying about 1,000 kilometers west of Iberia, might be the mountain peaks of sunken Atlantis. Others pointed to the island of Thermodon, whose Minoan civilization on Crete suffered a devastating volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE, generating tsunamis that battered Mediterranean coasts. A plausible candidate for the inspiration behind Plato's Cataclysm. Archaeologists have since uncovered multi-storied Minoan villas, advanced sewage systems, and frescoes depicting bull-leaping rituals that suggest a sophisticated Bronze Age society. Yet no conclusive evidence links Santorini's devastation to the geometric grandeur or moral narrative of Atlantis. During the Age of Enlightenment, the legend took on new life as scholars like Athanasius Kircher and later Ignatius Donnelly, whose 1882 book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, argued for Atlantis as the progenitor civilization of Egypt, and the Americas suggested a lost global empire whose survivors carried advanced knowledge to distant shores. Donnelly pointed to pyramidal structures, megalithic architecture, and flood myths on every continent as proof of a shared Atlantean heritage. Though modern archaeology has largely debunked the notion of a single mother civilization, genetic studies confirming multiple independent centers of domestication and metallurgical innovation The idea of a sunken utopia persisted in popular culture. In the 20th century, pseudoscientific expeditions targeted sites from the Azores to the Caribbean to Antarctica, deploying magnetometers, side-scan, sonar, and even treasure hunting gear in hopes of uncovering Atlantean ruins. One of the most famous quests was led by Charles Berlitz in the 1970s, drawing on accounts of undersea columns spotted by U.S. Navy sonar operators during World War II. Berlitz's best-selling works linked these anomalies to the fabled island, arguing that shifting continental plates and changes in sea level had submerged a once great civilization. Yet systematic marine geological surveys found those seismic anomalies to be natural basaltic rock formations, eroded by undersea currents and tectonic uplift rather than the remnants of human architecture. Despite these setbacks, the mythology of Atlantis evolved into a rich symbol in literature and film. Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea evokes sunken cities with coral-adorned domes and statues, while H.P. Lovecraft's short story The Temple speaks of nameless cities beneath the waves, oozing with ancient dread. In the modern era, cinema's dazzling depictions of Atlantis, from the animated utopia in Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire, to the submerged metropolis glimpsed in Jacques Cousteau's documentaries, blend scientific curiosity with fantastical speculation, ensuring that the legend remains part of the collective imagination. Contemporary marine archaeology continues to explore submerged paleoshorelands along continental shelves, mapping ancient river valleys now beneath the North Sea, Black Sea, and Gulf of Cambay in India. Underwater surveys revealed that sea rise at the end of the last ice age tens of meters over millennia drowned coastal settlements, dispersing artifacts over broad swaths of now submerged terrain. These real lost cities share echoes with Atlantis, evidence of human habitation, temple foundations, and organized urban plans revealed by sonar and sediment core analysis. In the Black Sea, the Discovery Channel's 2011 expedition found Paleolithic coastal villages preserved by anoxic conditions, offering tangible images of submerged human history that once whispered only in myth. In the 21st century, the legend of Atlantis serves as both cautionary tale and inspiration, a reminder that climate change and sea level rise, driven now by anthropogenic greenhouse gases rather than divine wrath, threaten modern coastal megacities built on deltas and low-lying islands. As global temperatures climb and polar ice melts, metropolises such as Mumbai, Venice, and New York face increasing inundation, prompting the construction of storm surge barriers, floating architecture, and managed retreat efforts that parallel mythic warnings woven into Plato's allegory of divine retribution. Scientists now use paleoclimate reconstructions, ice core records, and submerged landscape mapping to study how early Holocene communities adapted to rising seas. Projects like Europe's Submerged Landscapes Program and Australia's Aboriginal Submerged Cultural Heritage Surveys reveal stone-aged fish traps, middens, and shelters once located on exposed continental shelves. These real Atlantises underscore the human capacity to innovate, migrate, and ultimately endure in the face of environmental change. Though Plato's island may never re-emerge, Atlantis endures in our collective quest to reconcile myth with science, to unearth the deep connections between past and present, and to understand the fragile interplay between civilization and nature. As you envision the concentric rings of Atlantis's harbors, its marble temples crowned with gilded statues, and the sudden tidal cataclysm that engulfed it, let the story guide you into contemplation of human ambition, moral humility, and the ever-shifting boundary between land and sea. In that reflection lies both wonder and warning, inviting you to drift into dreams where lost kingdoms rise from the ocean's depths, and lessons from antiquity illuminate the path ahead. Imagine the vast, restless expanse of the South Atlantic in the late spring of 2017, when the modern Argentine Navy submarine-era San Juan I of just 5 TR-1700 class attack submarines built in the 1930s, exceeding 80 meters in length and displacing over 3,000 tons, submerged prepared to depart Ushuaia on a routine patrol mission. The vessel boasted advanced sonar arrays capable of passive detection across multiple frequency bands, an errand-dependent propulsion system allowing weeks of underwater endurance without surfacing, and a veteran crew of 44 trained in hours-long silent runs beneath the polar convergence. On the morning of November 17th, San Juan reported a minor electrical malfunction in her starboard battery compartment, an all-too-familiar hiccup in diesel-electric boats that could be rectified at sea. She assured her command she would continue her journey southward toward her next port of call. Over the next several hours, radar contacts with support ships faded and routine communications ceased. When midday arrived with no further word, the Argentine Navy initiated internal checks. By evening, an international search and rescue alert was issued, drawing vessels and aircraft from Argentina, Brazil, the United States, Chile, and Uruguay into a massive grid search encompassing thousands of square nautical miles. P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft skimmed the storm-tossed swell, deploying sonobuoys to listen for the faintest ping of an emergency locator beacon. Brazilian and Chilean oceanographic vessels towed side-scan sonar fish, mapping the seabed in high resolution. Unmanned gliders drifted on programmed patterns, sampling temperature, salinity, and acoustic anomalies at depths down to 800 meters. For days, the search teams found only oil slicks, scattered debris fields of rubber insulators, and paint chips insufficient to confirm a submarine loss. Yet, anxiety mounted with each unresponsive sonar sweep. A week into the operation, a U.S. Navy SOSUS sound surveillance system hydrophone array far to the north recorded a low-frequency implosion signature at precisely 242 Hz, lasting just 6 seconds, followed by the dull rumble of collapsing hull plating. Analysts matched the timing and bearing to San Juan's last known course, estimating the depth at roughly 800 meters within crush depth parameters for a type TR2 1700 craft hand, alerted Argentine command. Despite this breakthrough, the remote, rugged contour of the Patagonian continental slope hindered immediate localization. Undersea canyons and rocky outcrops create shadows on sonar returns that complicate wreckage detection. Undeterred, the Argentine government contracted Ocean Infinity, a private deep-sea exploration firm, to deploy an autonomous fleet of anchor-shaped, seabed constructor vehicles. Over 2 weeks, in November of 2018, these AUVs executed precision swaths across the target area at depths exceeding 1,100 meters, using multi-beam echosounders, synthetic aperture sonar, and sub-bottom profilers to peer beneath sediment layers. Finally, one mission returned a recognizable hull signature. The San Juan's distinctive sail and propeller cluster emerged from the abyssal plain, fractured into 2 primary sections separated by 90 meters downslope. Higher resolution imaging revealed the intact forward third of the submarine crushed inward as if squeezed by an invisible vice, consistent with a rapid implosion caused by uncontrolled flooding. The escape trunk doorway lay ajar, but empty, while pressurized cable conduits severed cleanly along bulkhead penetrations. The control room's panoramic sonar display panels remained illuminated, the last scan frozen in time, and digital storage modules containing crew logs and sensor data were recovered intact, subject to lab forensics that revealed abrupt termination of recordings at the exact moment of structural collapse. Chemical analysis of hull fragments found elevated concentrations of hydrogen peroxide breakdown products, indicating that a battery compartment fire or explosion likely triggered a loss of atmosphere and electrical power, disabling emergency ballast systems in seconds. The San Juan's sudden demise and prolonged uncertainty left a profound impact on submarine operations globally. Navies reviewed and upgraded battery room ventilation protocols to prevent gas accumulation, mandated real-time hull integrity monitoring via acoustic fiber optic sensors, and expanded international search and rescue agreements under the International Submarine Escape and Rescue Liaison Office. The tragedy also galvanized funding for next generation deep submergence rescue vehicles capable of reaching depths beyond 1,500 meters, ensuring that any future submarine in distress would have a fighting chance at rescue. Families of the 44 submariners formed the San Juan Light Foundation, commissioning memorial ships and scholarships for naval engineers, while annual commemorations on the vessel's lost anniversary honor their memory. The Argentinian flag now flies at half-mast on naval vessels each November 17th, and a permanent exhibition in Buenos Aires Naval Museum displays artifacts recovered from the wreck. A sealed logbook recording shipboard drills, a personal wristwatch stopped at 18 minutes past 9, and a brass sextant engraved with the captain's initials. Environmental scientists studying the wreck site found that the remains of San Juan have become an unintended artificial reef, supporting sessile invertebrates, deep water sponges, anemones, and corals, and attracting fish species such as Patagonian toothfish and grenadiers. Chemical sensors placed near the hull detect trace metals leaching from corroding steel, offering data on long-term pollutant dispersion in abyssal ecosystems. Acoustic monitors continue to record faint creaks and pings the submarine's ghostly aftershocks. The ocean's slow currents shift debris, a somber echo of her final gasp. Though technology and protocols have advanced, the air of San Juan tragedy endures as a testament to the ever-present risks of undersea warfare and exploration. Our vulnerability when traversing the planet's most inhospitable domain. Each year, navies worldwide honor the San Juan's legacy with drills, memorial ceremonies, and research symposiums, reaffirming the commitment to safeguard submariners whose silent service beneath the waves shields surface fleets and coastal communities alike. As you contemplate the San Juan's final voyage, her sudden absence in the deep, her slow descent into ruin, and the echoes she left in sonar records, allow the solemn quiet of the deep sea to remind you of the hidden forces that shape our world, the bravery required to confront them, and the delicate balance between human endeavor and nature's immutable power. Far beneath the sunlit surface, where the ocean's midnight realm begins and sunlight never penetrates, the carcass of a majestic whale becomes the unlikely cradle of one of nature's most extraordinary recycling systems, the realm of the bone-eating zombie worms of the genus Ozidax. When a whale's massive body finally succumbs to age, illness, or predation, and descends to the abyssal plains, often in waters thousands of meters deep, it carries with it an enormous reservoir of organic matter hidden within its skeleton. Large scavengers such as hagfish, sleeper sharks, amphipods, and crustaceans converge upon the fallen titan, stripping flesh and blubber in a matter of weeks or months. Yet even after soft tissues vanish, the skeleton remains a rich source of energy in the form of lipid-filled marrow locked inside calcium phosphate bones. Into this skeletal banquet crawl Osedax worms first, documented in 2002 by scientists from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. Forms so novel that they forced biologists to redefine what an annelid could be. The females, measuring just a few centimeters long, bear a crown of feathery palps atop their bodies that shimmer in submersible lights like undersea plumes. These palps serve as absorptive organs, filtering dissolved organic compounds secreted as bone lipids break down. Beneath this delicate flower of palp and plume lies a hidden network of root-like tissues that bore directly into the bone matrix, secreting organic acids and specialized enzymes to dissolve mineral hydroxyapatite and expose internal marrow lipids. Within those root canals dwell symbiotic bacterionate, Gamma-Proteobacteria species that oxidize long-chain fatty acids under near-freezing, high-pressure conditions, converting them into energy and essential nutrients that sustain both worm and microbe. Meanwhile, microscopic dwarf males mere millimeters in length live tucked within the female's gelatinous tubes, their only purpose to fertilize eggs. Larvae released into the water column drift in search of a fresh bone substrate, and upon settlement differentiate into females if they encounter uncolonized bone, or into dwarf males if they land near an established colony. This extreme sexual dimorphism and plastic life-stage strategy ensures that Osedax colonize each whale fall rapidly and effectively, maximizing reproductive success in an environment where suitable habitat is both rare and ephemeral. Over the course of years to decades, as successive generations of Osedax break down the skeleton from within, the worms form dense mats that carpet each remaining bone surface, their collective biomass and bacterial symbionts driving the final stage of whale fall succession. This stage is marked by the release of hydrogen sulfide and methane as bone lipids decompose, fueling chemosynthetic bacteria and specialized clams, mussels, and other invertebrates adapted to hydrothermal vent-like conditions. More than 30 species of Osedax have now been described, found in ocean basins from the chilly North Atlantic to the temperate Pacific. Each species adapted to particular depths, temperatures, and bone compositions. Molecular clock analyses of Osedax DNA placed their divergence from other annelids at least 50 million years ago, potentially coinciding with the emergence of large marine mammals after the end Cretaceous mass extinction. Biochemical investigations into root secretions have identified potent proton pumps, collagenases, and novel chelating agents capable of dissolving bone mineral at a microscale, while genomic sequencing of the symbiotic bacteria has revealed unusual gene clusters encoding lipid transporters and pressure-tolerant metabolic enzymes. These discoveries hold promise for biotechnological applications, industrial bioremediation of bone waste, biofuel production from lipid-rich feedstocks, and even the design of novel acid-resistant catalysts inspired by deep-sea life. Ecologically, Osedax worms play a critical role in deep-sea carbon cycling by converting whale skeletons into biomass and dissolved organic matter. They release carbon and nutrients that feed entire benthic communities. Whale falls, once thought fleeting curiosities, are now recognized as ecological keystones, their decomposition mediated by Osedax, creating nutrient-rich oases on otherwise barren, low-productivity abyssal plains. Experimental deployments of cow bones, large fish skeletons, and even terrestrial mammal femurs have confirmed that that Osidax will colonize any large bone, though some species show preferences for the lipid profiles of marine vertebrate remains. Observations via remotely operated vehicles have captured Osidax mats extending across metered sections of bone within months of placement, their feathery palps waving gently in bottom currents as they feed, grow, and reproduce in continuous succession. The study of Osidax has revolutionized our understanding of deep seafood webs, highlighting the remarkable adaptability of life in extreme habitats and the importance of episodic, high-energy inputs in sustaining benthic biodiversity. Researchers now deploy environmental DNA sampling to map Osidax distribution without direct observation, detect larvae through molecular markers in plankton toes, and use acoustic backscatter to estimate bone colonization in situ. In addition, astrobiologists look to Osidax as a model for potential extraterrestrial life forms on ocean worlds such as Europa or Enceladus, where chemosynthetic ecosystems anchored to mineral substrates may mirror the bone-eating worm phenomenon on Earth. Each new expedition, every recovered specimen and sequenced genome, deepens our appreciation for the ocean's hidden intricacies. As you envision the silent ballet of feathery worms cascading over a bleached whale skull, imagine the slow, deliberate rhythm of bones dissolving, the unseen labor of roots carving marrow channels, and the extraordinary partnership of worm and bacterium that transforms death into life. In that vision lies a testament to evolution's ingenuity, a reminder that in the ocean's darkest depths, death begets not an end, but the ceaseless renewal of wonder and ecological harmony. Far beneath the icy surface of the Southern Ocean, where the frenetic swirl of krill swarms above gives way to a realm of perpetual twilight and crushing pressures, lurks one of the ocean's most formidable and elusive predators, the colossal squid, Mesanicoteuthis, first hinted at by giant beaks recovered in sperm whale stomachs and confirmed by the occasional mid-water trawl or drifting carcass. This titanic cephalopod can exceed 12 meters in total length from tentacle tip to tail fin and weigh over 200 kilograms. Its massive mantle housing a powerful jet propulsion system and retractable hooks on its 8 arms that can ensnare prey with bone-crushing force. With eyes up to 30 centimeters in diameter, among the largest in the animal kingdom, detects faint bioluminescent glimmers of prey in near blackness, swiveling its broad, arrow-shaped fins to hover motionless in search of unsuspecting fish or smaller squid drawn within reach. Our knowledge of colossal squid biology remains fragmentary, drawn from a handful of specimens hauled to the surface by deep-water trawlers or recovered from the jaws of longline caught sleeper sharks. Yet each encounter reveals new wonders. The mantle's muscle tissue, rich in myoglobin and specialized for sustained anaerobic bursts, powers sudden lunges and rapid jet escapes, while the buccal mass conceals a radula tipped with katana's teeth for shredding flesh. Most astonishingly, each arm bears swiveling longitudinal hooks set upon stalks of hardened connective tissue, biological grappling hooks that can pivot to maintain a secure grip on slippery prey even in turbulent currents. As a colossal squid seizes a fish or lanternfish mid-body, these hooks lock in, allowing the predator to reel its quarry toward a parrot-like beak that shears bone like fine china. Even the stomach contents of captured specimens hint at epic battles. Remnants of toothfish, Antarctic silverfish, and smaller squid species colonized with scars where hooks tore flesh in desperate struggle. Encounters with live colossal squid are rarer than sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. In 2007, a New Zealand research vessel operating an autonomous deep-water camera system off the Auckland Islands, achieved the first in-situ footage, revealing a massive squid nearly 4 meters long hovering above the abyssal plain, its eyes reflecting the submersible's lights like twin moons, and its arms swaying in a slow, hypnotic rhythm before it drifted away into the gloom. Later expeditions using baited free vehicle landers captured moments of high drama. A colossal squid bursting from the depths in a sudden jet of water, grappling with a drifted fish carcass and engaging in a tangled tentacular duel that the camera recorded in grainy, awe-inspiring detail. Biologists passed these films frame by frame, calculating jet thrust velocities, hook angle distortions under stress, and fin beat intervals that suggested a cruising metabolism far slower than that of its smaller relatives, an adaptation to conserve energy in a habitat where meals might be days or weeks apart. Colossal squid distribution centers on Antarctic waters between 50 and 70 degrees south latitude, where cold temperatures, slow metabolism, and dense krill swarms sustain the deep sea food web's lower tiers. Juvenile squid likely inhabit slightly shallower mesopelagic zones, feeding on smaller prey until they grow large enough to move into the deeper, darker bathypelagic growth rings in statoliths, calcium carbonate structures analogous to fish. Otoliths suggest that colossal squid can live at least 5 or 6 years, though some specimens' size and beak were hint at longevities exceeding a decade. Genetic studies, based on mitochondrial DNA extracted from preserved tissues, reveal low diversity across sampled individuals, perhaps reflecting a single, interbreeding Antarctic population connected by ocean currents. Yet slight haplotype variations between the Weddell and Ross seas suggest possible subpopulations, their breeding grounds and life cycle migrations still hidden beneath shifting pack ice. Colossal squids sit near the apex of Antarctic marine predator control. Sperm whales dive to staggering depths to hunt them, as evidenced by giant beaks and hectocotylus fragments found in stomachs. While species such as southern sleeper sharks and Patagonian toothfish compete for the same prey resources. In one documented case, a hooked sleeper shark captured at 1,500 meters depth carried in its jaws a newly detached colossal squid tentacle, its suckers and hooks embedded even as both predator and prey perished in the net's tangle. Nature's brutal food chain laid bare. Such interactions hint at behavioral complexities. Perhaps colossal squid use stingy tentacle flicks to ward off rivals or predators before retreating into camouflage mode, allowing their translucent bodies and diffuse chromatophores to blend with the faint downwelling light. Researchers continue to refine our understanding through deep-sea acoustic surveys, eDNA filtering of seawater samples for squid-specific genetic markers, and the development of pressure-resistant tags, small enough to attach to live specimens' efforts that could one day reveal migration pathways, depth preferences, and perhaps even mating aggregations. Meanwhile, museum collections preserve the largest specimens ever retrieved, a 500-kilogram female dissected in Wellington, New Zealand, whose behemoth, mantle, and coiled feeding tentacles provided invaluable measurements for biomechanical modeling. Tissue samples from this specimen illuminated the squid's unique muscle fiber composition, a mix of slow twitch and fast twitch bundles that grant both endurance and explosive power. Enzymatic assays showed unusually high concentrations of lactate dehydrogenase isoforms optimized for cold, oxygen-poor environments, a testament to the colossal squid's adaptation to its niche at the limits of physiological possibility. Culturally, the colossal squid inspires both fear and fascination. its sheer size and alien appearance feeding modern myths of sea monsters and lost Leviathan species lurking in unmapped ocean trenches. Popular media portray them as kraken-like beasts capable of engulfing ships, though in reality their anatomy-rigid hooks, rather than flexible suckers, suggests they prey on medium-sized fish and smaller squid, not large surface vessels. Yet, the gap between myth and science often drives public interest and funding for deep-sea research, allowing biologists to plumb the depths through increasingly sophisticated technology. As you envision the colossal squid's slow glide through the abyss, imagine its vast mantle chamber contracting in silent jets, each pulse propelling the creature forward with uncanny stealth. Picture its eyes, each larger than a dinner plate, scanning for the bioluminescent flicker of prey, and sense the silent tension of tentacular hooks poised to strike. Let that image carry you deeper into contemplation of life in extreme realms, where adaptation has sculpted form and function to defy the boundaries of light, pressure, and isolation. In that deep-sea stillness, may your mind find calm as profound as the ocean's twilight zone, and may the colossal squid's secretive majesty guide you toward restful slumber. Far down in the dimly lit continental slopes and submarine canyons of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, at depths ranging from 600 to 1500 meters, where sunlight never penetrates and water temperatures hover just above freezing, dwells one of the ocean's most ancient and enigmatic predators, the frilled shark, Chlamydocelychus anguineus, first described by German naturalist Ludwig Dadeline in 1896 from specimens dredged off the coast of Japan. The frilled shark has since been encountered only a few dozen times, usually when inadvertently hauled up in deep trawls or observed by remotely operated vehicles exploring abyssal habitats. Measuring up to 2 meters in length, with a slender, eel-like body and a broad, flattened head framed by 6 pairs of frilly gill slits that extend forward over its throat. This living fossil retains a body plan remarkably similar to fossilized shark relatives dating back 300 million years, giving visible testimony to a lineage that has survived mass extinctions, continental drift, and major oceanographic shifts virtually unchanged. Its dark brownish-grey skin, covered in tiny placoid scales, blends seamlessly into the twilight zone's muted palette, while its small, lidless eyes adapted to detect the faintest traces of bioluminescent scan relentlessly for prey. Biologists believe the frilled shark's feeding strategy relies on ambush predation, coiled like a serpent in icy recesses of deep seamount ledges. It senses the electric fields or hydrodynamic disturbances of unsuspecting squid, lanternfish, or small cephalopods drifting nearby, then uncoils in a lunge powered by muscular contractions along its elongate body and a powerful caudal fin. At the moment of capture, nictitating folds of tissue may protect its eyes as its cavernous jaws swing open to reveal more than 24 rows of needle-like, trident-shaped teeth, each tipped with 3 cusps designed to pierce and hold slippery prey. Stomach content analyses from stranded or bycatch specimens confirm a diet dominated by squid species such as toaderodes and gonotes, arrowworms, and deep-sea fish. Intestine samples show unusually long gut lengths, suggesting slow digestion adapted to sporadic feeding in an environment where meals can be scarce and calorically dense. Reproduction remains one of the frilled shark's greatest mysteries. Like many of its elasmobranch kin, frilled sharks carry embryos in a yolk sac placenta for extended gestation periods. One remarkable specimen stranded off New Zealand in 1987 contained 24 well-developed embryos, each resembling miniature adults nearly half a meter long, proof that the frilled shark's gestation may last as long as 3.5 years, among the longest known invertebrates. Such prolonged development ensures offspring are born at an advanced stage, capable of swimming and capturing prey immediately, but yields a low reproductive rate that makes populations highly vulnerable to overfishing and habitat disturbance. Sexual maturity is believed to occur late, perhaps at ages 8 to 14 years, based on vertebral growth band counts, and individuals may live upwards of 50 years if not subject to fishing pressures. Frilled sharks occupy a niche at the very limits of shark physiology, surviving in near-freezing temperatures and high hydrostatic pressures requires specialized biochemistry. Blood analyses reveal elevated concentrations of urea and trimethylamine unoxide, compounds that stabilize proteins and cellular membranes against osmotic stress, while muscle tissues contain high proportions of unsaturated fatty acids to maintain membrane fluidity at low temperatures. Their cartilaginous skeletons, more densely calcified than many shallow water relatives, resist deformation under high pressure, and their slow metabolic rates, estimated at perhaps 20% that of comparable-sized temperate sharks, allow them to subsist for long periods between meals, despite their ancient lineage and ecological importance. Frilled shark populations remain poorly studied, and conservation assessments classify them as data deficient due to a lack of systematic surveys. Deep-water fisheries targeting toothfish, orange, roughy, and other high-value species frequently capture frilled sharks as bycatch, sometimes in significant numbers, yet these incidental catches go largely unreported or unmonitored in many regions. Researchers now call for deep-sea trawl observers and bycatch mitigation, measures such as gear modifications and time area closures to protect long-lived late-maturing species like the frilled shark. Cultural fascination with the frilled shark has grown as ROV footage, showing its sinuous, eel-like body gliding just above the seabed, circulates online, inspiring comparisons to sea serpents of legend. Its fossil relatives, such as Edistus and Cladoslake, evoke nightmares of prehistoric oceans, and the frilled shark's persistence into the modern era underscores the deep sea's role as a refuge for ancient lineages. Paleontologists study the morphology of extant frilled sharks to infer soft tissue anatomy in fossil taxa, while molecular biologists sequence its genome to trace evolutionary adaptations to extreme environments. As you picture the frilled shark's slender form drifting in the cold twilight, imagine its 6 frilly gill slits rippling with each breath of oxygen-poor water. See its jaws part in sudden flare to seize a drifting squid. Feel the silent tension held in its serpentine coils before the strike. Let its secretive majesty and primeval grace carry you into a sense of wonder that dissolves the boundaries between past and present, drawing you into a deep-sea dreamscape where ancient creatures still glide, largely unseen, in the ocean's eternal depths. Far below the sunlit surface, along continental margins and in deep-sea basins from the Gulf of Mexico to the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, lie geologic marvels that resemble liquid mirrors of hypersaline water. The brine pools, submerged lakes, of super salty water so dense that they cascade slowly across the seafloor like inverted waterfalls. These brine lakes form where subsurface salt deposits, remnants of ancient evaporated seas, are breached by faults and dissolve into the overlying water column, creating pools with salinities up to 5 times that of normal seawater. Because the brine's density prevents mixing, the interface between the pool and the surrounding ocean, known as the haloclanax, like a shimmering lens, refracting submersible lights and acoustic pings in strange, bending patterns, discovered in the early 1970s via deep-towed sensors that recorded abrupt changes in conductivity and temperature. Brine pools have since been mapped by multi-beam sonar as smooth, mirror-flat patches stretching hundreds of meters across, their surfaces sometimes dotted by depressions or ridges where seafloor microtopography interacts with brine flow. Life in and around these pools defies the extreme conditions. Oxygen is absent within the anoxic brine, and the osmotic stress of salinities exceeding 200 practical salinity units requires specialized adaptations. At the pool edges, dense mats of chemosynthetic bacteria flourish, oxidizing hydrogen sulfide and methane seeping from the pool floor and converting inorganic chemicals into organic matter that sustains entire communities. Tubeworms cluster along seep edges, their red plumes filtering dissolved sulfide, while mussels and clams anchor to hard substrates, hosting endosymbiotic bacteria in their gilled tissues that fix carbon via sulfur oxidation. Caridian shrimp, ghostly, white and blind, gather in swarms just above the brine's surface, feeding on bacterial films or preying on smaller invertebrates drawn to the chemical interface. Observations with remotely operated vehicles have captured scenes of eerie beauty. Thousands of ghost shrimp waving delicate antennae in the halocline's refracted light, squat lobsters perched at the brine's brink, and sea cucumbers grazing on organic flocks that settle at the pool edges. Beneath these communities, the brine itself hides anachronistic relics of Earth's climatic past. Sediment cores extracted from Red Sea brine basins reveal laminated sequences of white halite and dark organic-rich layers, chronicling cycles of precipitation and drought over hundreds of thousands of years. Chemical analyses show that many brine pools contain dissolved metals, manganese, iron, and rare earth elements released from salt diapirs and hydrothermal fluids, creating metal-rich habitats akin to or deposits on land. Microbial mats within the brine harbor halophilic archaea and bacteria that thrive at salinities lethal to most life, their cell membranes stabilized by unique ether lipids and compatible solutes such as glycine betaine. Genomic surveys of these halophiles reveal novel genes encoding salt pump proteins and DNA repair enzymes that function optimally in ionic strength environments, offering insights into biotechnological applications for enzyme engineering, bioremediation of saline waste streams, and understanding potential life in extraterrestrial briny niches, such as the subsurface oceans of Europa or Enceladus. In the Gulf of Mexico, the giant brine pool known as the Jacuzzi of Despair off the Mississippi Canyon was among the first studied in detail during the 1980s, when Alvin dives revealed pools nearly 20 meters deep, with seafloor currents pouring brine over edges like dark waterfall curtains. Measurements showed brine temperatures slightly elevated by exothermic dissolution of salt, while redox microprofilers recorded steep oxygen gradients across the halocline from normoxic overlying waters to completely anoxic brine within centimeters. Methane concentrations spike within the brine, fueling anaerobic oxidation of methane by consortia of archaea and sulfur-trusing bacteria that mediate the precipitation of orthogenic carbonates, white chimneys, and slabs of calcite aragonite that host dense faunal colonies. Radiocarbon dating of shells encrusted on these carbonates indicates ages of several thousand years. evidence that brine-driven ecosystems can persist over millennia with only episodic replenishment from deep, subsurface fluids. Similar systems in the Mediterraneans, such as the Latelant and Urania basins, lie along the Hellenic arc and display extreme contrasts in pH, redox potential, and chemical composition. In Latelant, the brine's pH dips below 7, and dissolved sulfide concentrations exceed 1 millimolar, creating a world that challenges the very definition of habitability. Yet life thrives. Protozoans, such as ciliates and pheromonophytes, colonize the halocline, their cytoskeletal proteins adapted to osmotic stress and high sulfide levels. Biogeochemical cycling at these interfaces reconciles sulfate reduction, methane oxidation, and metal precipitation in complex feedback loops that shape seafloor mineralogy and global budgets of greenhouse gases. Beyond ecology, brine pools have piqued the interest of geologists and climatologists. By analyzing the chemical stratigraphy of deep cores, scientists reconstruct past sea level changes, monsoon intensity, and continental erosion rates linked to the Mediterranean's Messinian salinity crisis 5 million years ago, when the basin nearly desiccated. The presence of relict brine pools, overlain by Pliocene sediments, confirms theories of periodic isolation and reconnection to the Atlantic Ocean, offering analogues for basin evolution on Mars, where ancient briny lakes may have left mineral signatures now preserved on the surface. Technological advances continue to reveal brine pool secrets. Autonomous underwater gliders equipped with micro-CTD sensors now survey halocline dynamics in real time, capturing fine-scale mixing events, internal waves that momentarily entrain brine into overlying water, and diurnal cycles linked to atmospheric pressure changes. High-resolution seismic surveys map subsurface salt structures that feed brine flows, guiding models of fluid migration pathways and the stability of submarine salt tectonics. In the Gulf, time-lapse cameras record seasonal shifts in faunal density, while methane isotope analysis distinguishes biogenic from thermogenic sources critical for understanding the role of submarine hydrocarbon seepage in climate forcing. Despite their inaccessibility, brine pools have fermented both scientific marvel and popular intrigue. Submersible dives reveal landscapes as alien as any science fiction vision: black, viscous lakes surrounded by rust-colored microbial mats, shimmering halocline surfaces reflecting spotlight beams in dazzling geometric patterns, and towering carbonate edifices encrusted with invertebrate life, standing like cathedral pillars in the gloom. Documentaries and blue water photography showcase these undersea wonders, inspiring new generations of ocean explorers to venture into the deep and probe the boundaries of life. In conservation terms, brine pools occupy a precarious niche. Deep-sea mining interests target polymetallic nodules and seafloor massive sulfide deposits, often located near salt diapirs, raising concerns about habitat disturbance and species loss. Environmental impact assessments now incorporate halocline mapping, benthic community surveys, and microbial diversity studies to ensure that extractive activities spare these unique ecosystems. Marine protected areas in the Gulf of Mexico and eastern Mediterranean increasingly include brine pool fields, safeguarding them from drilling, trawling, and seabed mining, and recognizing their value for biodiversity, climate research, and basic science. As you imagine the silent lakes of brine unfurling their salt-laden depths, consider the delicate balance of chemistry and biology that sustains them. How ancient salt deposits, tectonic forces, and microbial ingenuity converged to sculpt these submerged oases of hypersalinity. How the interplay of methane, sulfide, and metals gives rise to communities teeming with life against all odds, and how these hidden worlds reflect Earth's past and hint at other oceanic realms yet to be discovered. In the hush of your own mind, let the image of brine pools dark, still, and brimming with secret vitality guide you into a state of deep wonder and tranquil rest, as though you too are floating gently upon their anoxic saline mirrors. In the summer of 1997, as U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) scientists sifted through decades of archived hydrophone recordings, they encountered an audio signature of staggering power, a low-frequency, ultra-loud bloop that rose rapidly in pitch over about 1 minute and then faded away. This enigmatic sound, captured by multiple hydrophones over a span of nearly 5,000 kilometers in the South Pacific, became known simply as the bloop. Its amplitude, estimated to be around 180 decibels at 1 meter, far exceeded any known biological source, and its frequency sweep, from roughly 20 Hz to 1000 Hz, lacked characteristics typical of geologic phenomena such as earthquakes or underwater volcanic eruptions. The bloop appeared intermittently between May and June of 1997, recurring 4 times at irregular intervals. Because the sound recorded on multiple arrays with slight time delays, analysts triangulated its origin to an area east of New Zealand, around 2,000 meters deep, in a region largely unmapped and inaccessible to research vessels of the day. Early speculation ran wild. Marine biologists postulated an immensely large animal, perhaps a previously undiscovered marine beast, even larger than a blue whale, producing vocalizations of unprecedented scale. Theories of colossal squid, ghostly leviathans, and prehistoric survivors found fertile ground in media headlines. Geologists and oceanographers, on the other hand, argued for tectonic or cryogenic explanations. Icequakes, triggered by massive icebergs scraping continental shelves, undersea landslides, or hydrothermal vent bursts. Yet the bloop's acoustic signature did not match the broadband crackling of ice fracturing, nor the impulsive, high-frequency spikes of landslides. Its smooth, upward frequency sweep pointed to a source capable of modulating sound with precision. In the months following the bloop's discovery, NOAA's Tom Weber and colleagues plotted its spectral envelope and compared it against libraries of known marine sounds. The bloop lacked harmonic structure typical of cetacean calls, and its energy was too concentrated to be seismic, although the possibility of an unknown animal persisted. Further analysis, in conjunction with advances in underwater acoustics, eventually led NOAA to conclude around 2012 that the most likely source was the fracturing of Antarctic icebergs. Large ice masses, calved from glaciers, then drift into warmer waters, where they scrape and crack against undersea ridges, producing prolonged rising creaks that can register as frequency sweeps when tens of millions of cubic meters of ice shift in unison. Computer models of iceberg keel dynamics showed that such events could mimic the bloop's temporal profile, and subsequent recordings of known icequake regions captured remarkably similar sounds. Nonetheless, the bloop retains its place in ocean lore as a symbol of the deep sea's vast unknowns. Its brief, haunting melody reminiscent of a giant instrument tuned by nature underscores how little we understand the planet's largest habitat. Hydrophone networks deployed since the 1990s have logged thousands of acoustic events, yet only a handful compare in power to the bloop. In 2008, a shipboard expedition recorded what was dubbed the slowdown event off Antarctica, another massive frequency sweep, and more recently, Julia and train signals have reignited, interest in deep-sea acoustics and the possibility of non-geologic, perhaps even biological, sources. Researchers now operate global acoustic monitoring arrays, such as the International Monitoring System for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, and networks managed by ocean observatories, which continuously log low-frequency sound. Advanced signal processing algorithms using machine learning sift terabytes of data to classify events, differentiate between natural and anthropogenic noise, and pinpoint anomalous signatures. Despite these technological leaps, the original 1997 Bloop recordings stand unique in their amplitude and spectral purity. Scientists continue to revisit the Bloop archives, comparing the sound to newly captured data from iceberg rails, underwater rockfalls, and known whale calls, yet no definitive alternative to the iceberg fracture hypothesis has gained traction. Beyond scientific debates, the Bloop has inspired popular imagination, from speculative documentaries to mentions in novels and video games. It embodies the romance of ocean exploration, that somewhere beneath the waves, creatures or phenomena await discovery that may redefine life on Earth. For marine researchers descending in submersibles, towing autonomous gliders, or deploying deep-sea observatories, the Bloop remains both a caution and a call to curiosity. Powerful acoustic events can echo across entire ocean basins, yet their origins may lie in the intersection of physics, geology, and biology. Though the Bloop itself has not recurred under the same signature profile since 1997, its legacy endures in efforts to map the seafloor, catalogue marine life, and understand cryogenic processes at polar margins. Each new dataset helps refine models of how glacial ice interacts with ocean crust, how microbial communities colonize newly exposed rock, and how climate-driven changes in iceberg calving rates may alter deep-sea acoustic environments. In that sense, the Bloop is more than a mysterious sound. It is a signal of our evolving relationship with the ocean, reminding us that even in the age of satellites, the deep sea retains secrets that sing across the dark. Far beneath the rolling surface swells, where sunlight fades to a muted emerald and currents weave their slow, inexorable patterns, lie vast fields of sand sculpted by the ceaseless dance of tides and bottom currents into rippling dunes rivaling those of the Sahara. These submarine dunes, sometimes called sand waves or sand ribbons, form at depths from a few meters in coastal zones to hundreds of meters along continental shelves. Their crests and troughs, stretching over kilometers, composed of fine quartz grains, calcium carbonate fragments, and biogenic detritus. The dune's morphology depends on a delicate interplay of current velocity, sediment supply, and seabed slope, resulting in symmetrical ripples in low-energy settings or asymmetrical forms, the star's side gently sloping, the lee side steep where currents surge more powerfully. What makes these dunes sing is the phenomenon known as booming or singing sand, first noted by seamen who described the seabed as emitting low, haunting hums akin to distant bagpipes whenever a passing ship's propellers stirred the sediment. Modern underwater acousticians have recorded these sounds by lowering hydrophones to hover just above the dune crests. As currents accelerate down the lee slopes, grains within moving layers collide, rub, and shear against one another, producing a coherent acoustic signal dominated by low-frequency tones around 50 to 200 Hz. The resulting booms can carry tens of kilometers through the water column, their frequency and amplitude modulated by dune height, grain size distribution, and the thickness of the moving sand layer. In some dune fields along the Baltic continental shelf, hydrophone arrays have detected singing events lasting several minutes, with fundamental frequencies rising as dune migration speeds increase during storm-driven bottom currents. Detailed echo sounder surveys reveal that singing dunes frequently cluster in regions where tidal jets funnel through narrow channels or where internal waves, subsurface oscillations generated at density interfaces break against submerged shoals. In the North Sea, for example, the Doggerbank and Fisherbank areas host extensive sand wave fields shaped by strong tidal flows exceeding 1 meter per second. Mooring-mounted instrumentation measures near bed shear stresses that cyclically exceed the sediment entrainment threshold, triggering sheet flows of sand that ripple down dune faces. Acoustic Doppler current profilers, ADCPs, record these intermittent pulses of near-bed velocity, while pressure sensors mounted along the dune crests detect minute pressure fluctuations as sand layers avalanche downslope. Correlating these hydrodynamic data with concurrent hydrophone recordings allows researchers to map the relationship between flow intensity, sediment transport, and acoustic emissions, a sort of marine sonification of geomorphic processes. Grain scale experiments conducted in flume tanks and under controlled laboratory conditions have elucidated the mechanisms behind singing sand. When dry quartz grains of a narrowly defined size fraction, typically between 100 and 300 micrometers, sheared en masse, intergranular friction sets up synchronized vibrations within the moving layer. These vibrations couple with the surrounding fluid air in dunes and seawater, undersea, producing acoustic resonance that can self-organize into a clear tonal note. Underwater, the higher density and viscosity of water compared to air dampens high frequencies, emphasizing lower frequency modes that propagate with little attenuation through the sediment-water interface. This selective filtering explains why underwater singing dunes resonate at lower pitches than their desert counterparts, whose booming can reach several hundred hertz. Ecologically, singing dunes influence benthic habitats. The turbulent flows that mobilize sediments also deliver oxygen-rich water to infinal communities dwelling within and beneath dunes. Polychaete worms, bivalves, and burrowing amphipods exploit the mobile sands, anchoring themselves in the stosides or retreating into deeper pore spaces during sand. Recent ROV surveys have documented dense communities of the lugworm, Arena marina pupating in troughs adjacent to migrating dunes. Their feeding galleries are lined perpendicular to current direction. The dunes' migration rates ranging from centimeters to meters per year dictates the lifespan of these microhabitats, forcing resident species to adapt by rapid burrow construction and behavioral plasticity. Benthic ecologists use time-lapse seabed cameras to observe how singing events correspond with pulses of sediment resuspension, phytoplankton settling, and the foraging patterns of demersal fish, such as cod and flatfish, which probe freshly exposed sands for invertebrate prey when dunes shift. From a geological perspective, submarine sand waves offer analogues for interpreting ancient sedimentary records on shore. Seismic reflection profiles across continental margins reveal buried dune fields lithified into cross-stratified sandstones, their internal laminae angled and curved in patterns mirroring modern bedforms. By studying active singing dunes, sedimentologists refine models of dune migration, velocity, bedform wavelength to height ratios, and the hydrodynamic thresholds for initiation and cessation of sand movement parameters essential for reconstructing paleo flow conditions in hydrocarbon reservoir analogues. The distinctive acoustic signature of singing dunes has even been proposed as a remote sensing tool, undersea acoustic surveys leveraging controlled flow perturbations by small submersible thrusters could map dune fields and assess sediment stability in areas slated for pipeline routes or offshore wind farm foundations. Culturally, the lore of singing sands under the waves has inspired maritime myths. Fishermen in the Gulf of Mexico long told of whispering reefs that hissed like snakes when currents changed, guiding captains away from shoals. In the North Atlantic, sonar operators aboard research vessels sometimes mistook dune booms for distant machinery or biological choruses, only to realize the seabed itself was the singer. Today, oceanographers harness the poetry of these phenomena to engage public interest. Soundscapes recorded above singing dunes feature in documentaries and interactive exhibits, allowing listeners to experience the deep-sea chorus that shapes our planet's hidden landscapes. As you imagine the slow undulation of submarine sand waves, the hush of seawater punctuated by low, resonant tones, feel the ocean's pulse beneath you in the intersection of physics, geology, and biology. Singing dunes remind us that even the seafloor can voice its secrets, and that in the deep, every grain of sand contributes to a symphony older than human memory. Off the southern coast of Japan's Ryukyu Islands, near the town of Yonaguni, lies a submerged landscape that has ignited decades of debate. The Yonaguni Monument, discovered in 1986 by local diver Kihachiro Aratic while searching for prized carp fish. This underwater structure rests at depths between 20 and 30 meters and consists of massive terraces, platform-like ledges, straight edges, grooves, and right-angled corners carved into dark Ryukyu limestone. The largest terrace measures over 50 meters in length and forms a nearly horizontal plane, several meters above the seafloor, while adjacent features resemble colossal steps or pyramidal channels, some as tall as 7 meters and as wide as 20 meters from above. The formations suggest the remnants of a once glorious city, prompting tantalizing questions. Are these natural geologic processes sculpted by tectonics and erosion, or traces of an ancient human-made complex predating known civilizations? Geologists point to the region's intense seismic history and characteristic bedding planes in sandstone and limestone to explain the monument's geometry. Under repeated earthquakes, frequency high along the Okinawa trench rock layers fracture along planar weaknesses, producing long, straight joints that then erode into ledges and terraces. Submarine landslides and wave action preferentially wear away softer strata, leaving behind harder layers that form the flat steps and rectangular overhangs. Differential weathering processes under alternating cycles of subaerial exposure during lower sea levels in the last glacial maximum, followed by marine erosion during interglacial high stands, could carve the monument's dramatic shapes. In this view, marine terraces once formed at the shoreline some 12,000 years ago. As global sea levels rose, waves eroded the limestone along horizontal bedding, leaving the horizontal platforms we now see. Grooves and channels may be enlarged joints or fault lines widened by successive storm surges and chemical dissolution by slightly acidic seawater. Archaeologists and proponents of the artificial hypothesis counter that natural explanations alone fail to account for distinctive features. Precise 90-degree corners, parallel wall alignments offset at consistent angles, circular holes resembling post holes, and what appear to be carved steps at consistent riser and tread dimensions. Underwater surveys, led by Masaki Kimura of Ryukyu University, documented numerous features suggestive of tool marks, chiseling traces, and arranged megalithic blocks, seemingly placed atop one another. Kimura proposed that during the last ice age, sea levels were over 100 meters lower. This site formed part of a coastal city inhabited by a lost Jomon culture or an unknown pre-agrarian society skilled in stonemasonry. At that time, the region would have been dry land, with a temperate climate suitable for human habitation. Supporters point to terraced fish traps, stone alignments echoing building foundations, and possible altar or shrine platforms linking Yonaguni to other submerged sites around the world, such as Cambodia's Kokor or India's Dwarka Marine. Biologists have added an unusual dimension. Clusters of living coral and encrusting invertebrates colonize certain surfaces, while other surfaces remain oddly free of fouling, as if recently cleared or subject to periodic abrasion consistent with human maintenance. Sediment cores extracted from cavities on the monument's terraces contain microfossils and pollen grains that, when radiocarbon dated, suggest minimal sediment accumulation since the mid-Holocene, implying the structures fell into disuse some 8,000 years ago. Yet critics caution that differential currents and eddy patterns prevent uniform sediment deposition, leading to pockets of erosion and scouring that mimic cleaned surfaces. Advanced mapping techniques, including multi-beam sonar, sub-bottom profiling, and 3D photogrammetry, have produced detailed digital models of the monument, enabling close analysis of angles, surface textures, and alignments. Some researchers claim that dozens of alignments converge toward points corresponding to solstices or lunar standstills, indicating archaeoastronomical design. Others find such alignments coincidental, given the prevalence of linear fracture systems in carbonate rock. Seismic surveys show the underlying strata dip gently southwest at consistent angles, supporting the natural terrace hypothesis, while higher resolution imagery reveals microfractures that predate marine erosion, consistent with fault-controlled block faulting. Expeditions by technical divers and ROVs have recorded artifacts in nearby caves and overhangs, chipped chert flakes, shell-tempered pottery shards, and chipped stone tools that some attribute to Jomon or Yayoi cultures. However, none of these finds directly link to the terrace formations, and their stratigraphic contexts remain uncertain. No ruins of walls, paved courtyards, or inscribed stones have been recovered to conclusively demonstrate human construction. Today, the Yonaguni monument stands as a symbol of the ocean's capacity to blur the line between nature and human legacy. It is protected under Japan's underwater cultural heritage law, and dive tourism thrives, drawing adventurers keen to explore its labyrinthine corridors and speculate on its origin. Scientific consensus leans toward a predominantly natural formation shaped by tectonic uplift, jointing, and wave erosion, with possible minor human modification or use of existing terraces by coastal peoples. Yet the absence of definitive proof leaves the debate open, inviting fresh investigations as technology advances. Autonomous mapping drones, advanced sediment geochemistry, DNA analysis of biofilms for anthropogenic markers, and deep-diving submersibles capable of locating sealed chambers or buried artifacts. Whether an engineered city lost to the waves or a masterpiece of natural geology sculpted over millennia, the Yonaguni monument challenges our perceptions of time, memory, and the dynamic interplay between Earth's forces and human aspiration. In its silent, submerged halls, we glimpse both the planet's restless energy and the enduring allure of mysteries that lie just beyond our reach, waiting for curious minds to dive deeper into the blue unknown.